Hi, and a warm welcome to our Virtual Coach Advantage podcast today. Challenging times call for challenging leadership. I'm Emma Calvert, co founder, coach, and podcast host at Springboard Future. And I'm joined today by my wonderful co founder and our master coach, Neela Bettridge. And we're going to be delving into a topic that really is important for us in these challenging times: how you as a leader can manage and step up during crisis. So we are really in challenging times right now. So I want to get straight into this topic today, Neela, for us to really talk and understand about why challenging leadership really is needed given everything we've got going on in the world right now. I mean, some people might argue now is the time to retreat, to be a bit quieter, to kind of keep information close to you. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's a great reflection, Emma. I think we are going through probably 5 macro concurrent crises. Obviously, the first one is health, which the entire world is going through. There is an economic crisis going on. There's a humanitarian crisis, which actually nobody's really talking about. There's a political crisis with the rise of, some very authoritarian regimes across the world. And we have a real climatic emergency arising. So, yeah, there are some big challenges that are affecting not just us and our communities, but actually companies out there right across the world and how they operate. And this is the time where real leadership shines. And it's really interesting. I was interested in the last couple of months, really, the last year, how many leaders that I worked with really, really rose to the challenge and changed their businesses. And you can see this innovation happening all over the place at the moment. And organizations that are not doing it are finding it very difficult. We've talked in the past podcasts about the importance of emotional intelligence for leaders. And I would say that now, more than any other time, leaders need to be dealing with the macro, the strategic, the innovation, but also being really, really careful about using their emotional intelligence with their companies and the people who work for them. They need to be ramping up the empathy, ramping up the listening, and really understanding what their employees, but actually the clients and who they represent want, and working from there.
Yeah, no, really, really good observations there, Neela, because we've definitely seen some massive issues come up in the last 12 months. You know, if we think about it as employees, as leaders, members of our company, take what happened with George Floyd and Black Lives Matters. I hear a lot of our clients talking about that stuff now.
Absolutely. And, the thing is that there have always been challenges and difficulties thrown up, but it seems at the moment we've almost got a perfect storm of challenges and difficulties. And I think really what leaders are needing to do is keep resilient themselves, keep well themselves in order to deal with this. But the second thing is actually not to shy away from difficult topics and conversations. And I think leaders that find it difficult to lean into difficult conversations and difficult things happening will be probably finding this period of time very tricky indeed. They need to be open to learning. They need to be open to hearing how impacted their employees are and actually how they need to do things better. But also, having heard all of those things and bearing in mind what's going on in the macro, they need to be able to make decisions, to move forward, to really, really pick their way through and lead. There might be some really hard truths that need to be faced as a business. How do we need to change our business? There may be some difficult conversations that need to be had. But my belief is that inclusivity and diversity and how you take on board people who are very different from yourself into this conversation could be the key, because I think this is where innovation and idea generation will come from. And actually leaders who listen well and respond well and are able to lead from the front are certainly leaders that will be navigating this much better.
Yeah, and then there's a slightly, other aspects of leadership, that it'd be interesting for us to talk about because, we're big proponents of listen, empathize. It's going to help your business. But often as leaders, we are then the ones who have information that might be difficult for our employees to hear. Sometimes we're not able to share it. But, there is that fine balance about being open, transparent with the information you've got, isn't there, Neela?
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, for all sorts of reasons, competitively, etc. But also, what we need to do is to not create so much catastrophe that people feel paralyzed and they are unable to move forward. And actually, as we've been talking, Emma, I've been thinking about the challenges for middle managers right now within the areas that we are concentrating on here in growth and tech industries. This can be very worrying time for middle managers. What is their place in this? Who do they need to be? How do they lead people who work for them? Job security, all of these kind of things. So it is an interesting place to be from a leader who leads an organizational point of view, but also from a middle manager point of view.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, that, Nina. And I'm just reflecting back on a recent coaching conversation I've had with a middle manager who, almost feels a little bit stuck because, they know that there's things going on in the organization, but they're not at a level to have all of the information. And then they're getting the questions up from their employees, and yet they're not able to kind of influence and control. What sort of advice have you got for those kind of stuck middle managers?
Yes, this is where it is really important for them to really lean in to having the conversation that they need to be having with their managers. The manager themselves may not know, but actually, I think actually structuring conversations with people who are in the know and finding out what they can do to be involved and help with the challenges, how it might be done, what the best position might be, is actually very, very important. So it's as much for the lead managers to be able to lean in and have those difficult conversations as it is for the middle managers to lean in and really find out what is going on. And often happens is that people stick their heads in the sand because they're so worried about what the answer may be. But actually, that is not the way to deal with these kind of crises that we are facing at the moment. The only way to deal with them is to lean into them and ask the questions and not be afraid of what the answer might be.
It's definitely tough, Neela. Human nature, just our way of being, and I see this in organisation culture as well. Often, the place for us to go is to really hunker down, isn't it? But it doesn't serve us well, does it, Neela?
No, it really, really doesn't. And I've been working with an organization recently where there's a lot of uncertainty in the organization. And what has been absolutely brilliant is the middle managers in this organization have really got together and they have decided to jointly problem solve in this period of time. And they've come up with incredible solutions to things. But what they've also developed is a really wonderful way of working together and a support structure. And this has enabled them to navigate it because as the going gets tougher and tougher, we have to do it with others. We cannot do it by ourselves. And I think this is what people are learning: community, support structures, joint problem solving, ideation, all comes from working with other people.
Yeah, I really love that idea of support structure, and actually, one of my favourite speakers, Martine Wright. If anyone's ever come across Martine, she was the most injured survivor of the 7/7 London bombings, turned Paralympian, and she's just awesome. But she talks about this concept of a team me. So getting the people around you that are your support network that you can rely on, that you can bounce the ideas off, and the other book that I really enjoyed reading recently was Shawn Achor's The Happiness Advantage, because he talks about, in his top 10 things you need to be happy, he talks about the fact that having people around you and definitely not hunkering down when the going gets tough is really going to help you. So two resources that I like. But Neela, any other sort of inspirational resources or places to go on this topic?
Yes, two actually. One by Professor Amy Edmondson from Harvard. She has got something on YouTube on this at the moment, and there are four key messages in terms of actually dealing with these kind of crises. Be transparent, act with urgency, follow your values, and share power. But also, Simon Sinek, our old favorite, has also got something on YouTube on why good leaders make you feel safe. And I urge anybody listening to this podcast to actually go and have a discover of those, because they're really excellent. And they talk about how you navigate these types of environments as a leader or even as a middle manager. It doesn't matter which. But I think these are very good guidelines in which to actually navigate crisis.
Well, brilliant insights, Neela. Thanks for joining us today. I think these really certainly are challenging times for us. So we hope that this podcast today has perhaps given you some support and some things for you to think about and some extra resources. And we do hope that you and your companies and your loved ones are staying well during these times. Challenging times can sometimes lead us to have difficult conversations. So in our next podcast, we are going to be hoping to give you some insights and resources around that. So do join us for having difficult conversations. As ever, thanks for listening. We hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and any requests for topics. You can get in touch with us via our website, springboardfuture.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter. And don't forget to join us for our next podcast. Thanks for joining the Virtual Coach Advantage podcast today. We hope to coach you again soon.